Imagine you wake up. It is dark, not the comfortable dark of a bedroom with curtains drawn, a total swallowing darkness, the kind that makes you question whether the sun is ever coming back. The wind finds you before you even open your eyes. And this isn't cold. Cold is a word for something manageable. This is the air with a mission, 40 degrees below zero, and it is working. You have no walls, no coat, no food, no way to call for help. What you have is a fire, barely. A handful of struggling flames between you and a world that has been erasing things for 20,000 years. Here's the part that should stop you. The people who lived this didn't survive it for a night. They raised children in it. They built societies inside it. And while almost every large creature sharing the planet with them went extinct, they didn't. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly why. And the answer is nothing like what you'd expect. To understand how they survived, you need to understand what they were up against. Because the Ice Age wasn't just winter, it was a complete rewriting of the planet, and it ran for thousands of years without a break. 20,000 years ago, ice sheets 3 kilometers thick buried what is now London, New York, and Moscow. So much water was locked into ice that sea levels sat 120 meters lower than today. Entire land masses that no longer exist were walkable ground. Global temperatures were 6 to 11 degrees colder than now. That number sounds manageable. It is not. Scientists say a 2-degree shift is enough to collapse entire ecosystems. These people were living through 5 times that on foot with no warning. Somewhere in all of this, a mother was trying to keep her children warm. The land reflected every degree of that cold. Blizzards materialized without warning. Rivers froze solid for half the year. The soil froze, not at the surface, but meters deep, a frozen fist gripping the earth. Nothing grew easily. Nothing was predictable. And then there were the animals. This is where most people's imagination falls short. Woolly mammoths, 10 feet tall, weighing as much as a loaded truck, moved in herds across open plains. Saber-toothed cats with canines the length of a human hand waited in the shadows. Dire wolves hunted in coordinated packs with jaws capable of crushing bone outright. Cave lions, bigger than anything alive today, owned the darkness. And early humans, by every physical measure, unremarkable. Not the fastest, not the strongest, not even close to the most dangerous thing out there. So how did the weakest animal in the landscape end up being the only one still standing? The answer starts with something so small you could lose it in the snow without even noticing. In 2016, archaeologists in Morocco pulled something from a cave floor that stopped the team cold. A needle, 5 centimeters long, carved from bone. One end sharpened to a fine point. The other, a hole, hand-drilled, smaller than a matchstick, over 40,000 years old. And it changed everything. Before the needle, humans wore animal skins the way you'd drape a blanket over your shoulders. Loose, full of gaps, in mild, cold, survivable. But in deep Ice Age wind, the kind that strips heat from the body in minutes, a loose skin was almost worse than nothing. It gave you the illusion of protection while the cold kept working. The needle closed that gap, literally, with thread made from sinew, the dense connective tissue from animal tendons. Humans could now stitch hides together with precision. Fitted sleeves, sealed hoods, layered boots. No gaps, no loose edges, no exposed skin for the wind to find. Researchers tested it. Properly stitched animal furs match modern Arctic performance gear. 40,000 years apart, same result. One tiny bone needle. The line between freezing to death and living to see another generation. But warmth without shelter was still a death sentence. And the next problem they solved, you won't see coming. Open tundra. Every horizon. Flat, exposed, merciless.
I won't let
no
you have
trees, no movable stone. Wind at 60 kilometers per hour with nothing to slow it down.
Back
You
away.
need shelter. There is nothing to build with, except the ground around you is covered in the remains of the largest land animals on the planet. Ice Age humans looked at mammoth bones and saw architecture. Skulls the size of boulders, femurs taller than a grown adult, curved tusks spanning 4 meters. They stacked them, interlocked them, stretched hides across the frames, and staked everything to the frozen ground. Excavations across Eastern Europe and Siberia confirmed it. These structures weren't accidents. They were engineered shelters, domed, layered, deliberate, with small controlled hearths burning at their centers. Inside, temperatures ran 20 to 30 degrees warmer than the plain outside. When the open air sat at -40, a temperature that kills an exposed human within the hour, the people inside were surviving at -10. Still brutal, still survivable. But here's what matters most. These shelters weren't built by instinct. They were designed, refined over generations, passed down as deliberate knowledge from parent to child. They weren't reacting to the cold. They were outthinking it. But here's what nobody tells you about fire. The warmth was almost the least important thing it gave them. Every survival advantage these people had, the clothing, the shelter, the cooked food, traces back to one technology. But fire wasn't just heat. Fire was a platform, and what it built on top of warmth is what actually kept humanity alive. In an Ice Age winter, darkness lasted 18 hours a day. Without fire, those hours were lost, silent, dangerous, unproductive. With fire, humans worked through the night. They repaired tools, they planned hunts, they taught. Fire didn't warm their bodies, it multiplied their time. It also redrew the lines of danger. Saber-toothed cats, cave lions, dire wolves, animals that would breach almost any barrier to reach prey, but not fire. No large predator willingly crosses controlled flame. A fire at the shelter entrance wasn't just comfort. It was a wall that teeth and claws couldn't break through. And then there was food. Cooked meat isn't just safer. It's fundamentally more efficient. Heat breaks down proteins and fats the body can absorb far more completely. Modern research puts the caloric gain from cooking at 20 to 30%. In a world where every calorie was a survival decision, 30% was the margin between waking up and not. But fire's most powerful gift was still none of those things. It was the circle of people sitting around it. Here is the survival problem nobody talks about. Clothing, shelter, fire, they keep you alive until next week, but they don't feed you. And in a world where the ground is too frozen to farm and vegetation barely exists, eating means hunting things that can crush you without trying. A single human cannot kill a mammoth. That isn't opinion. That's physics. So early humans did something no predator in their landscape was doing. They planned. Hunting groups tracked herds for days, sometimes weeks. They memorized routes, identified cliffs, river bottleneck, patches of soft ground that would slow 6 tons of moving animals. They mapped ambush points. They assigned roles. And then they moved together with a coordination that looked less like a hunt and more like a military operation. Fire funneled herd, noise collapsed escape routes, coordinated pressure from multiple directions removed the option of running. The mammoth was stronger, humans were smarter, and smart, it turned out, was the more dangerous thing to be. One kill fed a group for weeks. The meat was eaten fresh or preserved in permafrost, nature's own deep freeze. Fat became fuel, bones became tools, hide became clothing, sinew became thread. Nothing was discarded, because in a world without surplus, waste was indistinguishable from suicide. When the big hunts failed, which they didn't panic. They fell back on systems, fishing through ice holes, small animal traps, cached seeds, dried roots, layers of backup built into every season. These weren't just hunters, they were risk managers, living 20,000 years before the concept had a name. Picture this. An elder sits beside a fire, too old to hunt, too slow to run. Around him are younger hunters. He's drawing something in the dirt with the stick. They watch every mark, because what he knows could be the difference between coming home and not. This scene played out for thousands of years before anyone thought to call it education. Here's what has quietly baffled scientists for decades. The mammoth was larger, the saber-tooth was faster, the cave bear was stronger, the dire wolf more ferocious. Every major animal in the Ice Age ecosystem had a physical advantage over humans. Every single one of them is gone. We're still here. And the reason isn't tools. It isn't fire. It isn't even intelligence. The reason is cooperation. Humans shared food. If your hunt succeeded and mine failed, you fed me. Next week it might be the other way around. That system meant a bad hunt didn't mean death. The group absorbed the loss. The individual survived. And the elder by the fire carried something even more valuable than strength: memory. Which animals moved where? Which plants were toxic? Which caves flooded when the thaw came? Which clouds meant a storm was 3 days away? That knowledge was passed down through stories. And storytelling did something extraordinary. It allowed people to learn from danger without having to experience it themselves. Information became survival. Now imagine the night, -40, wind screaming across an empty plain. Your fire is small, barely alive. And then, from somewhere beyond the firelight, something moves. Heavy, slow, getting closer. You can't see it. Only the sound of frozen ground compressing under something very large. You don't breathe. For Ice Age humans, this wasn't a rare moment. This was normal life, night after night, year after year, generation after generation. The people who survived it weren't superhuman. They were people just like you, and every morning they woke up and chose to try again. That choice, repeated across thousands of years, is the reason you exist. And then finally, the ice broke, temperatures rose, the glaciers retreated, forests spread across lands that had been frozen desert for longer than memory. The world exhaled. The animals that ruled the Ice Age mostly didn't survive that change. The woolly mammoth, gone. The saber-toothed cat, gone. Dire wolves, cave lions, giant ground sloths, all gone. But humans walked out of the cold stronger than they entered. They carried tens of thousands of years of survival knowledge with them. The needle became the loom. The cooperative hunt became agriculture. The fire in the shelter became the forge. The stories passed between generations became written language. Every city, every invention, every piece of modern life traces back to people sitting around a small fire in a frozen world, deciding that tomorrow was worth surviving for. You are here because not one person in your entire lineage gave up. Not one. Next time on Lost Survival Stories, the Ice Age wasn't even the worst disaster humanity faced. 74,000 years ago, a supervolcano erupted. Ash blocked the sun for years. The food chain collapsed. Humanity may have been reduced to just a few thousand survivors. Most species don't come back from something like that. So how did we? Subscribe and we'll find out. The ice tried for 20,000 years to erase us. We're still here, and we're still telling the story.